I don't like really difficult puzzles because I'm not that great at them. Of course, I've put a few of them in my game anyway, but because I felt that they were clever and I wanted to show the world that I'm clever. So there's that impulse. You have to write short descriptions for each object, but you can go into pretty high level of detail and going to sub-objects and sub-sub-objects. But I think that some reviewers of my game thought I did too much of that and were I guess felt that they had to examine everything and therefore they were having a boring time when they probably didn't really need to examine everything. So I guess you can go too far with that as well.
Was it just a case of that's where you found your joy in the game? Was fleshing out the world?
A lot of it, and that's where a lot of work went. I mean, there's tricks you can do to have different things start referring back to the same objects. I have a nice little description for the sun, and so in order to make sure that people actually hit that, I had a couple of little details where the way that the sunlight hits off water or various other things is mentioned, and there's a couple of other things that I implemented that I didn't really need to, but I just made sure that there were references back to them so that people would be more likely to look at them. Like the player character's shoes. Some of the more positive reviews did seem to enjoy just poking at everything that I had that was available to poke at. Not all of it is just the text you get when you examine things. There's also a lot of just poking at things in different ways. But not necessarily useful for the game, but fleshed out. Well, I felt more like I was writing a world, and I just happened to have a story come out of that to get people to feel that they were done at some point and could quit the game. But I didn't feel like I was writing a story primarily. I was writing a world first and a story secondarily. And one other thing about the game that I wrote is that there is a lot of backstory. I have hundreds of years of history and then thousands of years of prehistory before that, sort of. And that all comes out in various places, and there's also a whole world of geography in there too that you can find little references to here and there in the game. I put 4.5 years into it, and I kind of felt that after the competition was done and people had talked about the competition games, I just kind of fell off the map, and that's what games normally do. But I feel that there should be a little bit more than that. I think that, if I ever finish the version with the bug fixes, I want to promote it a bit more just so people can see all the other lines besides the one that I had sort of steered people towards in the competition game. I think there's a lot of game that most players never saw. They go to about 5,000 lines of code, and mine ended up about 13, which is a very rough, very rough.
That is a great clock.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fantastic. That was great. What was great? You always wonder with those kind of clocks, did the person who was the person who bought it the one who ended up having to have it? Whether it's somebody who said, wow, what a great idea, let's give it to not my house, or someone goes, oh, this will be a great addition. Anyway.
I don't know.
But now we definitely know it's 9.
Yeah. I took a couple of creative writing classes and wrote some stories in those classes. I haven't done anything outside of them. It's hard to get the motivation to complete things. I think that was one thing that the competition helped with a lot. But in some ways, I think that writing interactive fiction is easier because you can write description and not have to worry about the order that it comes in. You can just put up paragraphs to describe every little thing, and you don't even have to decide the level of detail you want, because that's something that the player will decide when they get tired of looking any deeper.
So you think it's easier?
No, well, it's a lot of work, but I mean, it took me 4.5 years to finish this game, but I think that some things where you have to really think about the order of how things happen, you don't have to worry about that so much in interactive fiction. Yeah, it's a lot of I put a lot of work into that game. It went pretty slowly for the first 2 or 3 years of the writing of it, and then I lost my job and it went a lot faster. And the last rush up to the comp deadline, I finished probably the last third of the game just in the last few weeks. Yeah, the first my first experience with it was with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy game, which I played when I was about 10 or so, and it was I didn't get very far in it, and I had to get the Invisiclues book for it, and eventually discovered that it was more fun just running through the Invisiclues book and not actually playing the game, so I was not really impressed. And then after that, didn't really come across it until some time later when I ran into Andrew Plotkin's web pages and saw his competition game reviews, and it looked like it was a lot more fun to read the reviews than it was to play those games. Some of the competition games, I guess, are a little bit marginal. I mean, the judges have to give the score based on the first 2 hours of play, but you can make games that have a lot more than that. And I think my game did require a lot of people to take more than that time, and they would just have to judge it based on what they saw. But I don't think that most people are too annoyed by that, even though some people say they are. It didn't seem to hurt my score any.